Okay, welcome to this webinar on looking after yourself. My name is Charlie Paradise and I work in HROD. First, I want to start with some simple facts about mental health. Firstly, we need to recognise that we all have mental health the same as we all have physical health. These are two health systems that every single person has and every single person needs to look after. When we talk about mental health, we don't just mean mental illness. We don't just mean the times when we're struggling with our mental health. Mental health is an overarching umbrella term used to describe anything to do with your mind or your emotions. So this means describing when you feel positively well in your mental health and when things are going well for you. If we put this back to physical well-being and physical health, to stay physically well in ourselves, whether that's our joints, muscles, or our bones, we need to do certain things. We need to do exercise, we need to look at what we eat and try and eat healthier diet. We also need to drink less alcohol, and we need to avoid things like smoking and taking drugs. So if we need to put all this effort into our physical health to make sure we stay physically well, let's think about how this might be the same for our mental health. When we talk about physical health, we also talk about physical fitness. Have you ever thought about mental fitness? Have you ever thought about all the things that you need to do to stay mentally fit so that your mental health is in a good place? So the first question to ask yourself is, what do you currently do to look after your mental health on a daily basis? What activities do you build into your day-to-day life to make sure you stay mentally well? The truth of the matter is that still as a society, we think of physical and mental health as different things. We always assume that we've got physical health, but we don't always assume that we've got mental health. Today, we're going to be talking about how we manage our mental health when we're going through a particularly stressful time. And for this, we're going to look at this vicious cycle. So in front of you on the screen, you can see 4 different areas that can be affected when you're going through a period of stress. The first one we're going to talk about is physical symptoms of stress. These are the things that you will notice in yourself and come in a range of symptoms. It's important to know that anything that you feel physically can then affect how you think. So when we go through a stressful period of time, we tend to think quite negatively. We tend to be quite self-critical. We tend to beat ourselves up. This can also then impact our feelings and how we feel about ourselves. This might lead to us feeling sad, upset, angry, frustrated. This can then impact how we behave. And by behaviour, we mean the types of coping strategies we use when we are feeling stressed. The thing is that with all of these areas, we need to break this cycle in order to move forward and feel better. So firstly, we're going to talk about how we can break the cycle in terms of our physical symptoms when we're going through a stressful period of time. There are 3 symptoms that we're now going to discuss. But the important thing to highlight first is that you have something inside you called the fight or flight response. You may have heard of this before, but this is something that every human being has built into them. When you go through a period of stress or you're facing something that is scary or makes you feel threatened, your body will automatically kick into a fight or flight response. This has come from years of evolution, and if you believe in evolution, you will believe that we evolved from animals into cavemen. And evidence has shown us that this system of fight or flight response existed back in the caveman days. So an example of this is when a caveman saw a perceived threat, something that scared it, like a giant tiger that might be prepared to eat it, it would have 2 responses to this. The first would be to fight the massive tiger, to turn around and attack it. The second would be to flight from the tiger, and this would mean running away as fast as possible. This is a system that's still built into us. So when we're dealing with a stressful event, something makes us feel scared, something that makes us feel threatened, we will either turn and try and fight the situation. We might get angry. We might show that we're frustrated. We might start shouting, or we might flee from the situation. So we might withdraw from people. We might avoid situations. But either way, whatever you choose to do when you're feeling stressed, this is a very normal response, and it's built into us as humans to protect ourselves. So every physical symptom that you experience when you're dealing with a period of stress is very normal human behaviour. And that's the first key to getting through this, is to accepting that it is normal and that these things happen to most people. So one symptom that is very common when we're going through a stressful period of time is experiencing headaches. This is actually linked to the fact that your brain is going into overdrive. It's kicked into the fight or flight response, and it's trying to process everything as quickly as it can because it feels overwhelmed and alert and panicked. So if your brain is going into overdrive, it's going to be inevitable that you're going to experience headaches. One simple thing you can do to help yourself in this situation is to take a break. If you're dealing with a stressful period of time, you need to give yourself a break to calm your brain down. Another thing you can do is look at doing a fun activity, something that makes you happy and something that is positive. By doing a fun activity, we will automatically change our mindset away from the stress. By forcing ourselves to do something that's enjoyable, we will reduce these headaches and all these problems that come with stress. The next really common symptom of stress is to experience an upset stomach. This unfortunately manifests in sickness or diarrhea sometimes. But again, this is a very normal feeling, and a lot of people experience this when they are stressed. Did you know that this is your brain telling your stomach that it needs to digest any food it's got in it as quickly as it can, so that it can make its body lighter so you can spring into action? So this again is linked to the fight or flight response. Your brain is telling your stomach that something is wrong, something is scaring it, something is making it feel threatened. So it needs your body to digest this food as quickly as it can so that your body can spring into action. A very simple trick to deal with this situation is to try and avoid eating food while you're going through a period of stress. This doesn't mean starve yourself or stop eating. This means calming yourself down before you start to eat your food. What can you do to calm your body down to make it feel at peace as you start to have your lunch or your dinner? Perhaps think about the environment you're eating in. Make sure it's away from anything that's causing you stress. Think about the food you're eating. Is it a healthy, balanced diet, or is it junk food? The problem is when we eat junk food is it's full of sugar. It gives us a temporary, unnatural high, which then wears off and we can feel worse at the end of it. If we stick to eating healthy meals when we feel stressed, this will help our bodies recover from the period of stress it's going through. The third symptom, and again a very common one, is to experience tense muscles when you're stressed. Did you know that this is your body getting ready for action and more blood is being pumped to your muscles? This again links back to the fight or flight response. Your body is feeling threatened and it's feeling panicked, and it has to respond to a perceived danger that it feels is coming. So your body is telling your muscles that they need to get ready for action. So the best thing to do in this situation is again to calm your body down. A very simple thing you can do, particularly if you're working from home, is to do some very gentle stretches. If you Google Bupa or the NHS, there will be some suggestions for home stretches you can do behind your desktop. Anything you can do though to loosen up your muscles will help you relieve this tension. So this includes things like having a hot bath or maybe doing things like yoga. There's an extra link here. If you type in NHS and managing stress into Google, this will come up, and this will give you a better understanding of the physical symptoms of stress. But the important thing is that when we experience physical symptoms of stress, this is an early warning sign. This is our bodies telling us that something is wrong and we need to address what's causing us stress. If we don't, these things will only get worse, and they will start to impact the other areas of our lives, such as our thoughts, feelings, and behaviours. So really, it is about addressing your stress. This leads us on to the next section, which is managing those negative thoughts. When we're going through a period of stress, and if we have got physical symptoms of stress, this can manifest into how we think. When we're going through stress, we don't tend to think very positively. We tend to be highly self-critical. We tend to lose a lot of self-confidence and self-belief. And we start to beat ourselves up and take responsibility for things that are not ours to take responsibility for. Negative thinking can spiral out of control and become very overwhelming, and it is never very productive. So here is a very simple three-step approach to overcoming negative thoughts. Number one is to catch it. We all need to recognise when we're having these negative thoughts, or they can consume us. You need to think in yourself, if you're having a negative thought, that's what's happening to you right now. You are having these negative thoughts. These are not positive things. So you're going to catch this negative thought before it takes over. The second step would be to check it. Ask yourself, is what I'm thinking factually correct? Is it actually true? Or is it just my perception at the moment? We need to challenge these negative thoughts because 9 times out of 10, they are not true and they can become very disruptive. The third thing to do then is to change it. We've caught our negative thought, we know what's happening. We've asked ourselves, is it factually correct, or do I have some doubt that it's true? So consider, what is it you can tell yourself instead? If you can't think of anything positive, it might be a good opportunity to park that negative thought. Put it to one side, write it down on a piece of paper. You can always revisit it later when you've had a break from the negative thinking. With negative thoughts, if we don't challenge, check and change them, then they can lead to spiraling out of control, and they can start to impact how we feel about ourselves. They can also impact our behaviours. So when we are stressed, we tend to have certain coping strategies, and some of these are harmful and some of these are helpful. For example, in front of you is a list of 4 unhelpful coping strategies. As I talk through them, I want you to consider whether these are the things you use when you feel stressed. Firstly, isolating yourself. When we feel stressed, it's easy to want to take ourselves away from the situation and away from people in general. In the short term, this might be helpful, but the more you isolate yourselves, the worse this can be for your mental well-being. Positive connections are really important for good mental health, and isolating yourself will reduce these positive connections. You'll take yourself away from the people that truly love and care for you. The second unhelpful coping strategy that's very common is to bottle things up. You feel like you can't talk about things, you feel like you can't burden other people with your feelings. But by bottling your feelings up, the feelings will only get stronger and they can become quite overwhelming. Another very common coping strategy is to turn to the odd glass of wine, or to turn to junk food like takeaway. In the short term, this might seem like a quick fix and might make you feel better for 10 to 20 minutes. But alcohol is a depressant and it can have a serious negative impact on your mental health. And as already explained, junk food can be full of sugar, which gives you a short-term, unnatural high, which wears off and can make you feel worse than you did at the start. The last one that I want to highlight is a really, really common one, particularly across our workforce during the pandemic. Trying to carry on without taking a break when you're going through a period of stress is not going to make you feel better. It will probably lead to emotional and physical burnout, and this can make you become quite unwell. Powering on and trying to carry on without taking a break doesn't make you a stronger person, and it doesn't make you more resilient. Taking a break and acknowledging when you're struggling is one of the strongest things you can possibly do as a human being. So some more helpful coping strategies that might want to replace some of these unhelpful coping strategies is firstly to talk about things to people. Having those connections is absolutely fundamental to good mental well-being. So talking about things helps us process what's going on, helps us problem solve, and helps us know that we're not alone. The second thing to consider is exercise. There are lots of benefits to exercise, both on our physical and our mental health. It doesn't have to be strenuous and it doesn't have to be boring. You can do something really fun, and for 10 to 20 minutes of your time is normally enough to make a significant difference to your mental well-being. Another really helpful coping strategy is to learn something new. And this doesn't have to be anything stressful like taking on a degree or taking on any stressful course when you're already dealing with stress. A really helpful thing to do is to simply do something as simple as watch a documentary, learn something new about a friend, do an online quiz, do something fun and enjoyable. But by learning something new, you will expand your mindset, you will remove any negative thinking, and you will open up a whole new world of possibilities. And lastly, to reiterate, eating a healthy meal. It can be very tempting to turn to alcohol or junk food when we feel stressed and overwhelmed. But whatever you eat will make a significant difference to your mental well-being. So eating a healthy meal will be the most productive thing you can do. With these helpful and unhelpful coping strategies, this can also affect how we feel about ourselves. As already identified, our physical symptoms, our behaviours, our thoughts and our feelings are all linked into this vicious cycle. So how do we deal with these feelings? Feelings can come in lots of different ways. They can be positive, like joy and happiness, or they can be negative, such as feeling sad or angry or overwhelmed. Firstly, we need to realise that feelings are normal. Whatever you feel is absolutely acceptable. You don't need to try and ignore it or deny it to yourself. You also don't need to beat yourself up for feeling that way. A really helpful thing to do, though, when you do experience a feeling, especially a negative feeling, is to pause and take a break. Sometimes our feelings can become so strong that they start to dictate our actions and our behaviours. It would be more productive to remove yourself from any stressful situation and take a short break to give yourself some space. And the third thing to consider is about making some changes. You feel this way for a number of reasons, but very much it's linked to your thoughts, particularly if they're negative, and sometimes your physical symptoms of stress. This can also be linked to unhelpful and helpful behaviours depending on how you are coping with those stressful times. So consider what you can change in any of those situations. How can you help reduce your physical symptoms of stress? How can you challenge your negative thoughts? What helpful behaviours can you implement to replace unhelpful behaviours? All of these will have an impact on how you feel. And by taking positive steps around these areas, you will improve how you feel and you start to feel more positive. So we've really discussed here the vicious cycle and how to break it. So think about how you can break those physical symptoms of stress. When you start to recognise those in yourself, these are early warning signs. How can you challenge them? Consider your thoughts. When you're going through stress, are these thoughts negative? Are they becoming overwhelming? Can you take action and challenge these thoughts? And also consider your behaviours. Are the things you do when you're stressed helpful or unhelpful? Are they causing you more harm than good, or are they helping you get through it? By really reflecting on these areas, you will make a significant difference to how you feel about things. But mental health doesn't just impact us when we're in a stressful position. As already explained at the start of the slide, we all have mental health and we all have to take steps to look after it. I'm now going to finish off by talking about the 5 ways to well-being. This is an evidence-based model that has been proven successful in building mental fitness and reducing stress. At the top of the page here, there is a link. If you Google NHS 5 steps to well-being, this will give you more information. But I'm just going to give you an overview now. So number 1, connect. This is about those positive connections. Think about the people around you and the people that you talk to on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. Are these positive connections? Do these people make you happy? Do you come away from the conversations feeling energized or exhausted? It's important that we don't take on other people's problems all the time. And it's important that we have those times in our lives where conversations are positive and meaningful. If you're not making enough time to have those connections now, you really need to readjust that and make more time for them. Connection is the single most important thing for good mental well-being. The second way to well-being is being active or doing exercise. There are 3 things that exercise does to promote good mental well-being. Number 1 is that it reduces adrenaline, which is produced when you're going through a period of stress. So this is a stress hormone. When you do exercise, you burn adrenaline off. The second thing exercise does is it produces endorphins. Endorphins give us a natural high and they make us feel positive and optimistic. So when we do exercise, we produce this positive hormone. And lastly, exercise allows us to feel a sense of achievement. If we set ourselves small exercise goals, as simple as I'm going to go outside today and I'm going to go for a walk for 10 minutes, and then we achieve that goal, we get a real sense of achievement and this builds our self-confidence. The third way to well-being is giving. We don't normally give to others to help ourselves, but this has a knock-on effect on our mental well-being. It gives us a sense of purpose and it gives us a sense of achievement, which can in turn improve our self-confidence. So have a think about the things that you can do to help other people. Even if these are small acts of kindness, they will make a big difference to your mental well-being as well as theirs. The fourth way to well-being is about learning. We've briefly touched on this before, but this is a reminder that by doing things that are small and fun and enjoyable and not stressful, we can help broaden our mindset, think of new possibilities, and give ourselves a positive distraction from anything that's causing us stress. And lastly, take notice. This is about living in the present. When we're very stressed, we tend to constantly think about the past and dwell on all the things that have gone wrong for us, all the people that have let us down, and all the mistakes that we've made. Or we live in the future and we constantly worry about what's coming next and what's around the corner. The truth is we can't change the past and we can't tell what's going to happen in the future. But what we can do is we can take control of the present that we live in. So there's a couple of ways to put yourself back in the present if you're feeling anxious about the future or you're feeling low about the past. You can do exercise, you can do arts and crafts, you can read a book, or you can turn to apps like Headspace or grounding techniques to concentrate on your breathing. These 5 things are fundamental and should be built into your lives on a day-to-day, if not week-to-week basis. So now I challenge you to reflect on how many of these 5 ways you build into your day-to-day life and see what you can increase. Our final reminder is that you do need to look after yourself. You do need to take an effort to look after both your physical and your mental health. But if things are becoming overwhelming for you, we would really encourage you to speak out. If you don't feel comfortable speaking to your line manager, you can email us in HROD at healthandwellbeing@swindon.gov.uk. And don't forget that we have Care First, which is a free on-phone counselling service. The number is 0800 174 319. Whatever works for you when dealing with a stressful situation, as long as it's positive, we would encourage you to keep moving forward. But if things are becoming difficult, we absolutely want all our staff to reach out and get extra support.